Now, we're picking up on that Malaysian graft story. CNA's senior correspondent, Melissa Goh, with more on the first case of high-profile corruption charges against the former army chief and his wife.
In the first of a series of high-profile graft charges against military top brass, 58-year-old former Army Chief Hafizuddin Jantan is slapped with 4 counts of money laundering. Now, he's accused of having received illicit funds between February 2024 up to June last year. About $500,000 were found in his bank accounts. Now, while his third wife, Salwani Anwar, who's 26 years old, was charged with 4 counts of receiving illicit money involving a lesser amount of $19,000. Now, wheelchair-bound, she told court that she's suffering from chronic boil in her thigh. Now, both are pleaded not guilty in claim trial. Now, under the country's anti-money laundering law, the Deputy Public Prosecutor, Wan Shahrudin, speaking to the media, said the onus is on the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt that money found in their bank accounts were from unlawful activities.
We are having an uphill battle in proving this case because it involves millions of dollars. But we wait and see. We'll try our best to prove our case.
Meanwhile, defense lawyer Aizo Anwar said his client, Hafizuddin, who's given 40 years of his life in the army and rose through the ranks to become an army chief, intends to fight it out in court.
I'm against corruption, but I believe under Article 5 Federal Constitution, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. You will feel the same if you're facing charges and you think you are innocent. So it applies to all.
Both Hafizuddin and his wife are currently out on bail with their passports impounded by the court. There are 2 more money laundering charges against the ex-army chief on Friday in a different court in Shah Alam, bringing the total of illicit funds involved to almost 3 million ringgit. That's about $750,000. Now, meanwhile, his former boss, the ex-chief of Defence Forces, Muhammad Nizam Jaffar, will be charged on Friday for a slew of corruption offences, including abuse of power and criminal breach of trust. Now, all these are serious offences keenly watched by the public. Now, if found guilty, they can be jailed over 15 years for each count. Now, the DPP said he will apply for all the cases to be heard concurrently in the same corruption court in Kuala Lumpur later when the case is up for mention on March 30th. Melissa Goh, CNA, Kuala Lumpur.
More on the graft crackdown in Malaysia now, and we're joined by anti-corruption and human rights lawyer Cynthia Gabriel, who is also the founder of the Centre to Combat Corruption and Cronyism. Cynthia, welcome. Now, today's defence graft arrest suggests that this isn't possibly just a one-off case. How deep could corruption run in Malaysia's defence procurement system?
Thank you very much. Well, this is a very, very long-standing issue. This is not the first of defense procurement scandals in Malaysia, but this is interesting and a very turning chapter and a very important time for us to actually look at the traitorous acts that have been committed by defense personnel. And it has been a concern for a very long time. But this is also the first time that a former chief, the army chief himself, has been actually charged for money laundering. So the 2 things to actually say here. One is that the king himself, at the opening of Parliament, had said very distinctly that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And as the Chinese saying goes, the fish always rots from the top. So we are actually just skinning and cutting through the very surface of what could be a much, much bigger problem. So we have had, for example, the littoral combat ships scandal, where we lost about 9 billion ringgit, and we haven't even seen a single ship as of now. We've had an older scandal called the Combat Corruption Scandal involving procurement of 2 submarine ships from the France. Shipbuilder body, which is called Thales. And none of this have actually been brought to resolution. So I hope that this would be the starting point of something that we can see much bigger dig into armed forces procurement
Well, you
corruption.
mentioned exactly
So
that. The focus.
the other thing I wanted to say,
Mhm.
the other thing I wanted to say is that these are traitorous acts, and the punishment that has been sort of come out from the MACC is that these are money laundering charges, and it is certainly goes much beyond money laundering. So these are traitorous acts, and stiffer punishment should actually be meted out, because what's at stake is actually our national security, and our national security has been completely compromised. And this is just so much worse than actually hanging a flag upside down, when there was a controversy a couple of months ago and everyone was going
Indeed.
hoo-ha about it. But here, I'm not sure where those people are to actually bring out their voices and to speak out against corruption. It's really very important to move things forward now.
So my question would be, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of those examples focus on defense cases and the defense industry. Should investigations be even widened to the civil service and other government-linked entities?
Well, before this defense scandal came about, there have been several other very high-profile scandals. We've had no less than 3 or 4 former prime ministers also being charged for corruption. And this is very embarrassing for Malaysia's track record. So we've had former Prime Minister Ismail Sabri charged for actually misusing and misappropriating funds for his Keluarga Malaysia project, leading up to about 137 million stolen funds. We've had Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, and so on and so forth. So the corruption scandals have been at the highest levels, and it actually points to very major structural effects that needs to be reformed and changed by the current government if they are really very serious about corruption. No doubt some law reforms are taking place, but it's certainly not enough to actually look at it holistically. In fact, I think that King has given a very blunt warning, and what really needs to be taken as next steps are actually looking at all enforcement bodies in the country, because many of them are riddled with corruption, from the immigration to the police and many other enforcement agencies that probably need to be investigated as well.
You brought up so many examples there. So I'm wondering, what is the sentiment on the ground? How are all these examples of corruption charges, for example, what's the impact been on public confidence in any sort of anti-corruption drive or initiatives?
It's very unfortunate that we are getting to deal with so many corruption scandals, and it's actually now being put on the current government to actually reform the system, which is a big, monumental task. But what I do think would be important next steps is to ensure the structural reforms are not delayed and they take place within the soonest of time, because we actually need to move forward with a lot of global challenges before us and so on. So public trust and public deficit can only be rebuilt when they see that enforcement agencies are acting impartially, independently, and without any kind of political interference. So it's really very important. Even the MACC has been blamed a number of times for actually taking politically aligned cases for the government of the day. And this should not be the case. So enforcement should be fair and enforcement should be independent. So only then can we actually look at rebuilding trust for the people, that they would really believe that the systems are actually working to combat corruption.
Cynthia, thank you so much. I've been speaking there with Cynthia Gabriel, anti-corruption and human rights lawyer, as well as founder of the Centre to Combat Corruption and Cronyism.